Namaste and welcome to Detours with me, Anuradha Goyal, where I talk to some very interesting personalities about journeys of all kinds. Namaste and welcome to Detours after a very long time. We have a very special friend on podcast today. She is Dr. Varada Sambus. I met her 4 years ago when we were curating a Yatra conference at BHU Kashi, and she presented about Vari pilgrimage. She was still researching then, and now she has published a book which is called Vari Pilgrimage, Bhakti Being and Beyond. And I thought this is the right time to pick her brain and understand what is Vari pilgrimage, why is it so important in Maharashtra, and why and how and when is it done. So, Varada, first of all, welcome to Detours. Uh, and congratulations on the publication of your book. I'm really looking forward to reading it in detail. I have been reading about Vari pilgrimage a lot as part of my research on pilgrimage traditions of India. And I recently visited Dehu and Alandi, which are the places of Sant Tukaram and Dhyaneshwarji. And you can feel the bhakti in the air on the banks of Indrayani River. So I am, it probably this is the perfect time to ask you these questions. So for a layperson who's not grown up in Maharashtra or who's not very well versed in the traditions of Maharashtra, please tell us what is Vari pilgrimage?
So, namaste to all our viewers and listeners. And thank you, Anuradha ji, for calling me to this podcast. The question that you asked, what is Vari? If you ask me the literal meaning, the term Vari comes from the Sanskrit root Var. And Var literally means that needs to be done frequently, or frequency is the core of this root Var. So, in this sense, what is Vari? What needs to be performed on an every year basis, or what needs to be done frequently at frequent intervals again and again?
At regular intervals.
At regular intervals. So, as you were mentioning about Somvar, Mangalvar, so there is also this frequency. So, thank you for bringing this to me because I did not think from this perspective. So, thank you for this intervention. But this is the frequency that keeps happening over and over again. And in this particular sense, it has to be done annually. Okay. So the moment we talk about, so of course, these are the common meanings of Vari. Right. But in the Maharashtrian context, the moment we say Vari, we immediately have the imagination of Pandharpur Vari or the Ashad Vari. So there are so many other pilgrimages that happen at regular interval. Say, for example, Khandobachi Vari, which goes to Jeswari. But in our imagination, in public memory, the moment we utter this word Vari, it means colloquially Pandharpur Vari, right, or Ashad Vari or Palki. Right. So these are the terms that we use interchangeably.
Okay. So tell us when and where did it start?
Okay. So as a researcher, when I look into the history of this particular tradition, to begin with, I must say that this is a living tradition. So this continues at least from last 800 years. That's the bare minimum that we can decipher from the historical evidences, archaeological evidences, from the letters that we have found. So Sant Dhaneshwar, who is also considered as the pioneering figure, earliest proponents of Warkari Sampradaya, which is unequivocally associated with Vari. Right. So, in fact, Warkari is the term which also comes from Vari. So, Sant Dhaneshwar is considered to be earliest proponents of the Warkari Sampradaya. And the literary evidences show us that Sant Dhaneshwara's family had the tradition of going for this Pandharpur Vari. So, Sant Dhaneshwar belonged to the 13th century. But if we go much beyond that, what we know is Pandurangashtak, which is composed by Adi Shankaracharya. So when he went to Pandharpur, he has composed this Pandurangashtak. So from this evidence, what we know by 8th century, which is the time period of Adi Shankaracharya, By 8th century, Pandharpur was already a known place for pilgrimage.
Right.
But what we cannot make connect of is whether this tradition of going to Pandharpur every year was a phenomena then or not. We are not very sure about that. But definitely, if it was very famous place of pilgrimage in 8th century, definitely it came to prominence much earlier.
Okay. So it must
Pandharpur
have
as
been
a
a continuation of an existing tradition.
Yes. So Pandharpur as a kshetra, so the archaeological evidences, they date back at least to the 2nd century,
Okay.
where Pandharpur and the Vitthal temple are mentioned.
Okay.
But what is the connect? So if you can put this into jotted points, for Pandharpur and the Vitthal temple of Pandharpur, the pilgrimage itself, and the Warkari Sampradaya. So if we see this as a trinity, where these dots got connected at what historical juncture, it's very difficult to decipher them. But as I said, we can definitely and confidently say that Vari, this pilgrimage itself, has the history of at least 800 years. We can stretch it back. We can go much deeper into history, but definitely 800 years is the mark.
So, so tell me, as somebody who's not from Maharashtra, what happens during this Vari pilgrimage?
Okay.
When is it done?
Okay. So, what happens? Let's begin with when it happens. So, the most famous and what gets most media attention is the Ashad Vari, Ashad pilgrimage, and this journey is usually about 18 to 21 days, depending on Kshaya of Tithi or Adhika of Tithi.
Right.
So, depending on that, about 18 to 21 days. Ashada is usually in English calendar June or July. So it's the beginning of the monsoon in Maharashtra. So that's the time. But Vari takes place. So the accepted Varis in the Warkari Sampradaya are 4 times in a year. So Ashada is the most well known, like it's very well known in amongst the circles. But Kartik is already also very popular. So Ashad and Kartik are the famous ones. But apart from these two, we have Chaitраvari and Maghavari. So now the question is why Ashada is so famous, because it's also the most populous. You see most of the Warkaris joining Ashada pilgrimage or Ashad Vari precisely because that suits the agricultural calendar in Maharashtra. As I said, this is usually the beginning of monsoons in Maharashtra. So what generally the Warkaris who generally come from agricultural backgrounds, they are usually the agriculturalists, and they just till their soil and then whatever they want to sow, they would do that, and then it is up to Pandurang to give them the best results. So they pray that there should be good monsoons and etc. So this is the time. So please try and understand how the economic cycle is connected with the religious spiritual cycle. So this also, Mr. I'm just deviating a bit, but I think it's a good deviation at this juncture. So in general, this pilgrimage or the sampradaya which propagates this pilgrimage, that is Warkari Sampradaya, they are not the otherworldly kind. Because the very timing of pilgrimage, it tells us that you need to take care of your prapanch, your worldly affairs, your family, and then whatever time you get in between, go and do something that is transcendental or that can earn you a lot of merit spiritually, that will keep you calm throughout your year. So these usually whenever we talk about bhakti, the images in popular imagination is sannyas or devoted to God and then immersed in bhajan, not taking care of the family. So these are the kind of popular images that we get in our minds. But if we look at the timing of this particular pilgrimage, we are very sure that it is connected with the economic cycle, with the agricultural cycle,
and also the nature cycle.
Yes, of course, the nature cycle. So this cyclicity, which is also, I believe, very part of Hindu philosophy.
You're right.
The cyclicalism. Yeah.
Right, right. So, okay, it happens 4 times a year. The most popular is the Ashad one, and the next most popular is the Kartik one. Now, I was just wondering, we also have 4 Navaratris, which are more or less around the same time. And the only Navaratri that differs from Warkari is the Ashwin and Kartik. So instead of Ashwin, it's Kartik. And I was thinking about it, why does it happen? And I figured out the reason, and I must share this with you.
Okay.
Because Ashadi Yatra happens when it is, and it happens on Devshayini Ekadashi.
Yes.
And the Kartik one is Dev Utni Ekadashi.
Correct. Chaturmas.
Yes, right? So between these times, Vishnu is sleeping. So you can't have festivals dedicated to Vishnu between this time. So that is why the Ashwin gets moved to Kartik, and otherwise it follows the same cycle that the Shaktas follow. Again, the same cyclicity comes in. So that's what the rationale I figured out.
Okay. Okay.
But like, take us to one of the pilgrimages. Take us to one of the places from where the pilgrimage starts and what happens during the pilgrimage.
Sure.
And also, are there any prerequisites? Do I have to, if I want to go, do I have to prepare myself?
I couldn't get the last part of the question. Could you please repeat?
What do I have to prepare for the pilgrimage? What are the prerequisites for a pilgrimage?
Okay.
For a Vari pilgrimage?
Let's divide this into two parts. One, what is it about? Like how does it happen? And second, if I want to participate, how do I prepare for it? Right. So the first question you asked me about the starting point, or from where the pilgrimage starts. So very frankly, the mandate is to reach. There is this place called Warkari, just before Pandharpur. It's about 10 kilometers from Pandharpur, and everybody is supposed to reach Warkari on Dashmi. So Ashadi Ekadashi is the climax,
right,
of the Vari, and that's the important day. So everybody is supposed to reach Warkari on Dashmi, which is a day prior to Ashadi Ekadashi. Now, how do people start from their own places? What is necessary in this pilgrimage is walking. So, of course, because of lots of means of communication and transport, though, and people are very busy with their profession and vocation, so not everyone can walk from their own place to Pandharpur every year. So, of course, people have started taking railway journey and bus journey, but the classic understanding of Vari, it is supposed to be done on foot. One is supposed to walk to Pandharpur from their places, and these are places from where Palki procession starts. So you might have come across the term Palki, which is very closely associated with this Pandharpur Vari. In fact, Pandharpur Vari is also known as Palki Sohla. Sohla is basically festivity or celebration. There are at least 70 Palkis which start from Marathi speaking region, and I'm using the term Marathi speaking region consciously because it's not the political map of Maharashtra from where the Palkis start. In fact, some Palkis start from Indore, some from Baroda, and some even beyond. Some start from Tanjore.
Oh, I didn't know about Tanjore.
Yeah. So whatever was the Marathi speaking region pre 1960, because in 1960 the political state of Maharashtra came into being, but before that the Marathi speaking region spread even beyond the political map of Maharashtra.
So can we say it is about wherever the Pandharpur Kshetra is worshipped, the Palkis start from there?
I am not sure whether Pandharpur Kshetra is worshipped. So I would, in fact, would like to quote Iravati Karve, a very well anthropologist, and she has written an excellent piece on this Pandharpur pilgrimage.
I read that.
In 1962, she wrote. And the way she defines Maharashtra, because if we look at the timing in which she is writing, 1962, just when Maharashtra was formed politically, she writes, people from where places from where people join Pandharpur Vari is Maharashtra, and this is Marathi speaking region where Marathi is the primary language.
Okay, sure.
So whether to be very frank, Pandharpur as a kshetra, whether it is worshipped or not, is, I would say, it's secondary. But Vitthal Bhakti.
Vitthal Bhakti. Okay, maybe
So
I use the
again, I
wrong.
am
I use them
distinguishing between these two.
interchangeably.
Yes.
Yeah, but
So
Vitthal. Yeah.
Vitthal Bhakti and going to Pandharpur is the ultimate form of devotion, or is ultimate symbol of this
Yeah.
association.
Yeah.
But even at local level, so you will find lots of local Vitthal temples. Going there, attending kirtans, doing Hari Path every day,
If I
fasting
have
on
to,
Ekadashi.
yeah,
Yeah.
for a normal audience, if I have to draw a parallel, if you are a Shiv Bhakt, your ultimate destination is Kashi. If you are a Shiv Bhakt, you can go to multiple other temples you can have, but your ultimate temple is Kashi Vishwanath. So similarly, if you are a Vitthal Bhakt, then your ultimate destination is Pandharpur.
Pandharpur, correct. But at the same time, as you mentioned, and I think that's within broad Hindu philosophy,
Right.
even though you have a particular deity or Ishta Devata,
Right.
or you worship a particular Bhagwan, that does not mean that you antagonize the others.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, what is very interesting, and when I was looking at this pilgrimage and deity, the worship patterns, what I realized was Vittal in no sense is Kula Deva. So it is not ancestral god.
Right.
So we do not have Kuladeva in, like, none of the Marathi families would have Vittal as Kuladeva. We would
I
have
think he's a
Khandova.
very strong Kshetra Devata.
Yes,
He
Kshetra
resides
Deva,
on-
and secondly, R.C. Dhere, another very prominent historian, he uses the term Lokadeva.
Yeah, so I honestly don't understand. I don't distinguish between Lok Devata, and because
Yes,
that's a historian's
yes,
classification.
yes, yes,
That's a scholarly classification.
yes.
The practice classification is that the Kshetra Devata.
Kshetra.
Now people of this Kshetra move out to another region, they continue to worship him.
Yes, yes.
So anyway, coming back to take us on the pilgrimage. So
Yes.
what happened?
So, as I said, there are at least 70 palkis which start from different regions, which is Marathi speaking region. And these palkis are of santas which belong to Warkari Sampradaya. Say, for example, you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that you went to Dehu and Alandi. So,
Right.
Alandi is the place where Sant Jnaneshwar took Sanjeevan Samadhi at the age of 21.
Right.
And Sant Tukaram, who is supposed to have gone to Vaikunt from Dehu. So Dehu is associated with Sant Tukaram and Alandi with Sant Jnaneshwar. And the palkis of these two santas, they are the most prominent, most populous, and they attract lots of people and Varkaris. Not just those who are initiated in the Varkari Sampradaya, but even somebody like a lay person, or those students, scholars who want to study, who just want to have a glimpse of the feel of Vari, most of them would join either Jnaneshwar Maharaj Palki procession or Tukaram Maharaj Palki procession. As I said, at least 70 Palkis start from different places, and they just imagine that aerial view where all 70 Palkis converge in Warkari. It's a small town, and these palkis, sometimes they are carried on shoulders of people, sometimes they are in chariot or ratha, sometimes they are on a vehicle, the modern vehicle like tempo or tractor, sometimes they are on a bullock cart. So the different means, but what is at the core of these processions is palki. And usually the foot images, or what we call as padukas, are kept in those palkis. So padukas symbolize the living spirit of these santas of past. So that is how it is. And as I said, various processions coming from different parts, taking different routes, they culminate in Vakri, and on the day of Ashadi Ekadashi, they enter Pandharpur. So usually about 3 to 4 lakh people are with Sant Jnaneshwar Maharaj Palki, about the same number in Tukaram Maharaj Palki, and then the number varies with different palkis. Overall, the Vari itself consists of about 10 to 15 lakh people every year.
It almost feels like a visualization of all roads lead to Rome. So,
Yes.
during this time, all roads lead to Pandharpur.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So
I will
what
give you
happens?
another
So
example.
are there any rituals that are done at the beginning of the palki when the palki starts? What is done during, let's say, if a palki takes 10 to 11 days to reach, what is done
About 3 weeks.
About 3 weeks? So
Yes.
about what is done during these 3 weeks? And what happens once, what happens on Ekadashi?
Yes. So, what are the rituals? Primarily, per se, there are no rituals. Who can join the Vari? Anybody can join the Vari. So, there is no mandate per se. The mandate is for the Warkaris who are also Malkaris. So, to be a Warkari, one is supposed to wear Tulsi Mala. So, they go to a Guru or a Maharaj, and there is always a Sakshi in the form of a friend who is a fellow Warkari, or a text which is accepted in the Warkari Sampradaya, or they go to places of worship which are revered by the Warkaris. So, this is the way in which Tulsi Mala can be adopted. And once you adopt the Tulsi Mala, you adhere to certain rules and regulations.
Okay.
So, for example, non-consumption of alcohol, non-consumption of meat. So, basically, all Vaishnava rules be applied. Non-committal of adultery, no lying, and the most importantly, committing to go to Pandharpur Vari once a year, every year.
Okay.
So there is a cliche which says which describes that if a worker is not found in Vari, he is supposedly dead. So that is the amount of dedication, and once you commit to it, you have committed. And then you come across families who are like 10th generation, 11th generation, and in their family the tradition to go to Pandharpur continues. So it is a family pilgrimage. You will it is from one generation to the next. The tradition is transmitted, uh, passed on. And secondly, even during the Vari, it's very common to come across, say, 4 generations walking together in the Vari. So I met these 4 women who had come for Ekadashi to Pandharpur. So they said, like, these women, they come only on the day of Ekadashi, and men in the family, except 2, they walk the entire pilgrimage. But it is symbolic for the family that all of them come together in Pandharpur on the day of Ekadashi. So this is how it happens. The ritual part, there is prasthan, which is departure from the temple of that particular santa. The aarti is performed and the palkis are taken out of the temple. And there is a fixed route. So these palkis halt at different places. For example, for Jnaneshwar Maharaj's palki procession, there are about 15 halts. So these halts are very fixed, and primarily the Warkaris associate themselves with a dindi. So I'm introducing another important term which is associated with the Vari pilgrimage. Dindi. The Vari, many processions of palkis make the whole of Vari, and many dindis. Dindis are the small groups of Warkaris, and these are the core organizing units of Vari pilgrimage. So, for example, where do I stay? What do I eat? Where do I stop? How do I do my morning rituals, bathing and cleaning? So all that is been taken care by the dindis. So how are Warkaris registered for this pilgrimage? They are registered for the pilgrimage through these dindis. So as I said, dindis are the core organizing units. There is some adhikari vyakti who is a very senior Warkari, who is very trained in the tradition. They are usually the heads of these dindis. There is some small amount that Warkaris need to pay as form of registration, because the logistical arrangements do need some amount of money to provide these facilities, whether it is drinking water or food. Sometimes there are trucks which are used for carrying the luggage of the Warkaris so that they can move faster. And every dindi within the palki procession has a fixed place. So all dindis are given numbers by the Samsthan Committee of Temple, and it's well organized. There are about 27 dindis before the palki procession of Jnaneshwar Maharaj, before the palki of Jnaneshwar Maharaj, and there are about 350 dindis after the rath, after the chariot of palki.
So typically, how big is a dindi? How many people would form a dindi?
It can vary depending on the number and the members in the dindi. It can be from 50 to 1500. Oh. But every dindi has to have a Vinekari. So Vinekari is usually the leader of the dindi. And then there are Pakhwajis. Then there are Jhendekari, those who carry the flags. Then there are women who carry Tulsi Vrindavan on their heads and water jars on their head. So these are, so if you come across the classic images of Warkaris, or if you type Warkari in your Google images, the kind of images you will get are of these people. A woman carrying a handa, or a water jar, or a Tulsi Vrindavan, or there are people who play cymbals, taal we call them. So there is constant. So if I really want to give you visual and audio kind of feel, so there is a constant rhythm of mridang, of taal, of veena, and then there is continuous singing of abhangs. At what time what abhang to be sung is also fixed. So it is called bhajani mala. On what day? So if it is Somvar, what abhangs to be sung on Somvar is also fixed. So this sequence is adjusted by each dindi. As I said, how to sing, what to sing, when to sing what, that is all fixed. But what is to be sung at that particular moment is led by a Vinekari of that particular dindi. So whether it is walking in the procession or whether it is for the logistical arrangement, as I said, Dindi is the core unit. So if you really want to understand how this pilgrimage takes place, or if you really want to dive into the experience of Vari, one should register in a Dindi. So of course there are many Warkaris, or there are many people who join the Vari who do not register themselves in Dindi. Sometimes the registration is over. Sometimes people who are not into the tradition, they are not aware of this system.
Right.
And one fine day they see something on news channels, and then there is urge that I should go and walk at least a few miles in the Vari. So because of all these reasons, there are people who are not affiliated to any of the dindis. They are called upare, the externals,
Extra.
extra, or they are called mokade, untied.
Okay.
Mokada is untied, unbound. So dindi, people are bound to that particular dindi for everything that happens in the Vari. And these people, but those who are unaffiliated, they have to make arrangements for stay and food, and then bathing and cleaning on their own. So that creates lot of burden also on the management of the Vari. The state apparatus, because the state is very much involved, the government is very much involved with the management of the Vari. So all that has been taken care, especially in terms of mokade Warkari or untied, unbound Warkaris, that has to be taken care. So that is how it looks like.
In fact, when I was reading Iravati Karve's essay and also another book on Vari pilgrimage, I figured out that when the procession reaches a particular village or town, literally a market or a fair comes up there.
Yes.
For that day, so it kind of boosts the economy of that place as well.
Yes. So it's one is economy. There is another very famous person, famous in the sense he completed his PhD from Deccan College, Pune in 1950s. He was a French scholar, French anthropologist, sociologist, G.A. Delary. And he puts it beautifully in his The Cult of Vithoba is the title of his book, which was later published by the Deccan College itself. And in that he writes, and I really feel that's how the sense of Vari can be captured. One is the economic part, as you rightly mentioned. But apart from that, as a student of political science, what interests me is the circulation of ideas. Right. How ideologies are shaped, how people's minds are shaped. What we call in Marathi or even in Sanskrit, we can use that word Samaj Man. So the minds of people are focused or are directed in a particular direction. And how does that happen? So when these pilgrimages, now imagine, as I've been saying consistently, Marathi speaking region, about 70 and more palkis starting from different towns and villages, which are remote parts of Maharashtra and Marathi speaking region. They are starting from there. The common ethos is the Warkari ethos. What needs to be done is very clear. What should not be done is very clear. And they are moving places to places, from village to village. So what happens in that? The Warkari ethos, I consider this as Warkari ethos, which is disseminated in those villages. So obviously, not all Marathi people can join the Vari procession, but at least every Marathi person feel associated or wants to feel associated in some or other way. So if the palki is going through the nearby village, or if it is halting at a nearby village, I and my family will make it a point to go and take darshan of padukas every night wherever the palki halts. And I'm talking about all these palkis, like about 70 palkis. Every halt there will be samaj arti. Now, what is samaj arti? Of course, the Warkaris who are walking with the palki, they will gather together at the palki tad or palki where it halts, the ground on which it halts. They all will join together, and apart from that, people in the village, in that particular village and adjoining villages, they come for this evening aarti when the palki reaches that particular spot, and the aarti is performed. So this is the way, and you don't see then caste and gender and religion and language and the status, social status, education status, vocation, profession, nothing you see. The only matter or only binding force is the palki and the padukas.
Right. So and
on the palki tada, I'll just complete this point. And on the palki tada, every night, a pravachan or a kirtan or a bharud or some kind of bhajani malika will be performed every day. So through kirtans, through bharuds, through pravachans, this ethos is very much disseminated in words and performances. So otherwise,
I want to add to something. This is so the common ethos of the Warkaris and the people who participate on the way is their devotion towards Vitthal one. All of them have that devotion. So it's like an invisible thread that binds you. I mean, this is something that I've spoken a lot about in my book, that these are the invisible threads that bind India, despite all the diversity. Yes. And two, when you read yatra literature, when you read Tirth Yatra literature, the seva of the Tirth Yatri itself gets you a lot of punya. So if you are going on a Tirth Yatra, I want to get a share of that by serving you. So even when you go for Amarnath Yatra, right from Jammu onwards, you will see people feeding them, people, doing massage, people providing all kinds of amenities just to serve the Tirth Yatri. So that also is a factor that you serve the Tirth Yatri.
Yes.
Okay, so now take us to
Yes, so very much. So I will come back to this thread of Pandurang Bhakti. So to put it very simply, not every Vitthal Bhakta is a Warkari. Because Vitthal Bhaktas are spread, I would say, across India.
Right.
But all of them do not adhere to the Warkari ethos per se. Right. But every Warkari is a Vitthal Bhakta.
Right.
Second element of this thread, anybody, irrespective of caste, class, gender, age, etc., whatever social dimensions of hierarchies, every person in the pilgrimage in this particular Vari is called Mauli. So Pandurang is also known as Vitthal. So it is Vithoba Mauli or Vithai. So these are the terms which are used. Vithoba Mauli. The Santas whose palkis are taken along, they are called Mauli. So Jnanoba Mauli, Vithoba Mauli.
What does Mauli mean?
Mauli meaning mother.
Oh, okay.
So the Marathi term for mother is Mauli.
Okay.
Okay. So Jnanoba Mauli, Tukaram Mauli, all Santas are Mauli. Every Warkari who has taken the Tulsi Mala or not is Mauli.
Okay.
The statespersons, say for example, police, the traffic police, anybody who is involved in the management of traffic or any other stuff, even the collector of that particular place are Mauli. A tea vendor or those who have come for economic benefit are Mauli. Even the journalists who come and want to cover the pilgrimage are Mauli. And people who go and study, like me, in Vari, they are also Mauli. So every individual, irrespective of age, gender, caste, and now as we know, Mauli or mother is a feminine pronoun. But all the so-called male santas and the very deity is also Mauli. So that is irrespective of gender. So this is very important. So that is also, so when we talk about samarasata, what better example do you need to think about these dimensions of caste, gender, and other hierarchies? So of course,
it reminds me of Braj, where everything is Radhe Radhe.
Yes, Radhe Radhe.
Everything is Radhe Radhe.
Correct.
I have to say hello, it's Radhe Radhe. I have to
Radhe
say
Radhe.
bye, it's Radhe Radhe. I don't know your name and I have to call you, I'll say Radhe Radhe.
Yes, 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 yes.
So we have this tradition of becoming one.
Yes, because somehow, like as a student, when we are in the university campuses and when we keep reading books, particularly by those who are not rooted in the tradition or coming from the big universities, the professors of big universities, the immediate sense that we get as students here in India is that, oh, our society is such a divided society. Because we simply overlook these dimensions. Of course, I'm not like, it's not all goody goody, and it's not that I want to just whitewash all the hierarchies in the society. But what needs to be understood that these are also the traditions that are present in this very society,
living traditions.
Living traditions, and in that sense, the society is not black and white. It's completely hierarchy ridden, or there is no hierarchy and there is only equality. The societies do not work anywhere in the world like this. So there are elements of all.
So no, we do need hierarchies at places. You do need hierarchies, and I like to think of the world as a network model where correct. And hierarchies are transient.
Yes,
depending on absolutely. Where we are. So today you are an expert on Vari, so you will get a hierarchical position in that space. Tomorrow, if I'm speaking about something that I have an expertise on, I go up. So hierarchies are transient; they're not fixed.
Yeah,
as the West. Anyway, that's besides the point. So let's come back to Vari. So yes. All this is done. On 10th day, they reach Warkari, and then what happens?
So on the day of Ekadashi, usually, so what the mandates are taking darshan of santas. If people are keen, they can go and listen to the kirtans which are being performed on the desert of Chandrabhaga, so on the banks of Chandrabhaga river, which is in Pandharpur. Many of them go and take darshan of Pandurang. But what is unique about this particular tradition, it is not a mandate. So maybe for logistical reasons, or maybe as a memory of the past caste hierarchies, some of them, they just take darshan of pinnacle and start their return journey.
Okay.
Another important part is return journey is not very meticulous. So whatever means of return journey you can take. So the elaboration is about reaching Pandharpur. There is no elaboration or no rituals per se for the return journey. If you get bus or railway or whatever means or car or cab, you can take it and reach your home on the day of Dwadashi. So technically the yatra culminates on Dwadashi. Very important dimension is taking a dip into Chandrabhaga on the day of Ekadashi. That is considered the most holy, the holiest of all. So more than even the darshan of Vitthal. And I find this very ironic. The entire duration, we are keen to meet Vitthal. If you talk to Warkari, they will say, okay, we are going to meet Vitthal, we are going to meet our Mauli, we are going to go to our maternal home, we are going to meet our dear one.
But I have the answer.
Yes. So I have the answer. When you are already in Pandharpur, seeing even the pinnacle of the temple is good enough. You take a deep, you do upvas, you do vrata of Ekadashi on that day. The second day, that is Dwadashi, you offer Naivedyam, and it is offered in the form of kala. So rice flakes and dahi is the main prasad, and it happens at Gopalpur. There is another temple in Pandharpur complex which is called Gopalpur, where kala happens, and there is kirtan of kala. So that's the culminating kirtan, which is attended by many of people. And in Pandharpur, these palkis, they are situated in different mathas. So there are dedicated temples in which these palkis are kept for darshan. And on the day of Dwadashi, after breaking the fast, the yatra culminates. It's completion of yatra, and then people start moving back. On the day of Ekadashi, or during these 3 days, from 10th, 11th, and 12th, Dashmi, Ekadashi, and Dwadashi, taking darshan of, say, for example, Pundalik was considered as Adya Bhakta, because of whom Krishna came all the way to Pandharpur and stood akimbo on the brick. So that's how, so taking darshan of Pundalik and other complexes, because interestingly, here Krishna and Rakmai or Rukmini, Krishna as, so Panduranga is considered as child form of Krishna, and his consort Rukmini, so they have different temples. So Vittal is not with Rukmini in this particular complex. So of course there are stories explaining the reason why they are not together, etc. But taking darshan of Vittal and then Rukmini, so this all depends. There is no per se mandate. What is the holiest of all is taking a dip in Chandrabhaga. Whether you take darshan, whether you do not attend kirtan, all of it is voluntary.
So I have the answer for you why people why there is no mandate. One, there is no mandate on pilgrimage in general. Second, wherever we have our tirtha sthalas, the most important tirtha is the water body, is the river. So river is, because she is the Adi tirtha. The temples come and go, but the river remains. So that's why dip in the river is most important anywhere, any pilgrimage. Second, it must be due to logistics reasons, but they say that you don't have to enter the Garbhagriha of the temple. Once you are in that kshetra, you are in the sacred spot. You are absorbing the energy of that place. So it's not important to really stand there in front of the god, because he's there. You know, we also believe in Nirgun Nirakar Roop. So that energy is all around there. So I'm not surprised because of this, because I've seen this in many places. So okay, so tell me, what happens to the palkis? How do they go back?
So palki, so only few people who are Vinekaris or who are the Adhikari Vyaktis in Dindis, dedicated few, and who are the core Warkaris. Only they accompany palkis on return journey. So if
they go walking or they go
walking. So as I said, walking is mandatory.
Right.
Only during the Corona period, where the processions were not allowed, the palkis were taken to Pandharpur in a bus, and they were brought back to the respective temples in a bus.
Okay.
But otherwise, the traditionally palkis go on by foot, and palkis come back on foot. So that's how it is. And if, say, for example, Naneshwar Maharaj's palki and padukas, if it takes about 18 days to reach Pandharpur, it takes only 9 days to reach back Alandi. So the pace is doubled. So return journey, it is called Paratvari. Parat is return. Yeah, so Paratvari. And there is somebody called Sudhir Mahabhat, and he did not participate in the Vari because he did not have leaves, and his job did not allow for this much of holidays. So what he did, he just went on Paratvari, and he has documented his experience in the book titled Paratvari. And he says, if Vari to Pandharpur, going to Pandharpur, is Vaibhav Vari. So it is a grand celebration. Paratvari is Vairagyavari.
Very interesting.
So that is how he mentions, and I found that very intriguing, because I also did some parts of Paratvari. The pace at which it goes, the internalization of the entire experience of Vari, all that happens during the Paratvari. People would hardly sing abhangs. Of course, they are singing, but it's like more of internalizing. Whereas the externality, the celebration, the festivity of it is in the Vari itself, when you go from the respective place to Pandharpur. So Vari and the Paratvari.
So if somebody is in charge of the palki, they need to budget about a month's time to participate in this. Roughly.
So they have to be very well versed with the calendars and the tithis, because when there is kshay, if there is kshay, how much distance are we supposed to cover on that day? do we need to reduce the halt at a particular place and increase the pace, or do we need to take one more halt because there is adhika of tithi?
Right.
Because as I said, the mandate is to reach Warkari on the Dashmi.
Right.
Rest of the schedule needs to be adjusted accordingly.
Okay, sure. In fact, when you were describing the whole Vari procession and the dindis and the way they are organized, I think it's a great case study of a very well organized event, because
Yes.
everything is so well organized and it has been going on for so long without us really hearing of any untoward incident.
Yes.
You know,
So
or
I
any
must,
major, any
yeah.
major. I mean, I'm not
At
talking
this
about
juncture,
small.
I must explain that this particular system of dindis and the palkis and the procession and the numbers, the sequence, all this is a very, in a way, modern phenomena. So there was a Warkari, a very, very senior Warkari, Haibat Baba Arpalkar, who was a devotee of Jnaneshwar Maharaj and of course Warkari himself, who was the soldier of Gwalior, of Shindes of Gwalior. And so he was trained in military tradition, and he brought that to the Palki processions.
Okay.
So
this is when, roughly what time?
Mid of 19th century, about 1850s onwards.
It still makes it more than
Yes.
160-year-old.
Yes. 200, about, yeah.
200 years. Is this the same person who was on the
who
first
has a
step?
samadhi in adjoining to the samadhi of Jnaneshwar Maharaj?
There is one person whose samadhi is on the steps, as you enter. The same person.
Yes. Haibat Baba Arpalkar. Yes. So
right.
he is very well revered in the Warkari tradition.
Right. So, so once the palki returns, then the people return to their own homes, and they prepare for the next Warkari maybe.
So not all Warkaris accompany the return journey.
Right.
Most Warkaris would start returning their homes from Pandharpur itself.
Okay. And can Pandharpur accommodate 15-16 lakh people?
Yes. So every house will have accommodation facility. Every matha in Pandharpur will have accommodation facility. So everything in Pandharpur becomes a residential place.
Okay.
Because it's otherwise a very small town and it cannot accommodate so many people. But even the towns adjoining Pandharpur, as I said, Gopalpur or say Warkari. So some people, some mathas are in fact in Warkari because it's just about 8 to 10 kilometers, and people prefer to walk that much rather than flocking in Pandharpur.
Okay. And anybody can go and stay in these places?
Yes. So as I said, even the system of dindis does not work in Pandharpur.
Okay.
So dindis are together only until you reach Warkari. Usually, some dindis continue. They also continue for return journey. So that's exception. But usually dindis disperse once they reach Warkari, because then it's so difficult even for the dindis and dindi pramukhs to manage accommodation and stay and food of so many people.
I'm assuming food is not a problem because everybody is on fast.
No. So the part of seva that you mentioned, I did not touch upon that. As I've said, every person wants to associate with this tradition, in whichever way they can. So I came across this Warkari who had the ancestral tradition of going on Vari, but because of his modern job and the demands of his profession, he cannot join the Vari every year. So what he does, he gets cooked food. They prepare food for about 1,000 people, and there are fixed spots where they will come and serve that food. So they will then serve food to about 3 to 4 dindis, depending on the number of members in the dindi. So they will approach dindi pramukhs and they will say, okay, on this spot, we will offer you seva, anna seva. Similarly, there is pada seva, pani seva. Pani seva is offering water. Food is like you will see lots of people offering food for fast, whether it's rajgira or bananas, some fruits, curd and buttermilk, all that is plentifully available. So
that's the beauty of Indian pilgrimage.
Yeah. So and the phrase and the saying is, no one goes empty stomach on the path of Pandharpur. And that's very true, because I myself have experienced, because as I was moving from Dindi to Dindi, from place to place, because I was interviewing people, and rather it would happen, rather than going hungry, it might happen that you are in one Dindi about 12 noon, and you are in another Dindi by 2 p.m. These both Dindis would insist you to eat and take prasad.
Right.
So there is a possibility that you may end up eating
Overeating.
more than what you would usually do, but
Right.
not going hungry. And that's the connect that we have. And it's not just food then, it's prasad.
Right. So, while studying it, what has been, if you have to sum up your own personal experience of being part of these journeys, how would you sum that up in one or two sentences?
Yeah. So very importantly, I come from relatively very prestigious kind of institute. I completed my PhD from JNU, Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi, and I have been doing like masters and MPhil and PhD all through from JNU. So what I realized was the gap, and as I mentioned some time back in our podcast, I'm a student of political studies. So whatever we learn in our university premises, the theories that we learn in our university premises, do not necessarily play them out on the field. In fact, particularly when I am a student of religion, and what we so because in political science, religion comes only in two ways: either it's a private affair, it has nothing to do with world outside, as my fundamental right under the constitution, under article 25 of the constitution, or in many writings it comes only as a source of communalism. And I'm stunned to put down these observations, because the only ways to look at religion and religious practices, and rather I would say upasana paddhati or sampradayas, because the religion is not a correct word to use here, but sampradaya, there is so much of tradition, and it is part of people's day-to-day lives. People's mornings and evenings and the nights, they happen depending on the ethos which is disseminated through these pilgrimages, through these practices. And when we are thinking about democracy as students of political science, if we are not taking cognizance because we are the so-called secular state, I think we are doing a big harm, not just to the demos and the democracy, but also to academics. We are not then true academicians if we do not take cognizance of all of it. Because as I said, whether I like it or not is irrespective. The fact of the matter is, day-to-day lives of people are governed by the ethos which is disseminated at these sites. And as students, we must take cognizance. And secondly, rather than coming out with our own theories, sitting at our desk and table, we must go to the field and see. So talking about intolerance, sitting in the university campus is very easy, but unless you go to the field and really see what's happening in these places, you will not get the idea how tolerant and how accommodative ordinary people are. They don't need degrees to talk about tolerance and to be tolerant. And again, I would not use that term tolerant, because
tolerance is
that's
not
a
the
very,
right
very
term.
negative connotation. How accommodative they are.
I would say how
Just
respectful
as
and
you
how
are.
affectionate they are towards
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah.
So my whole experience is from going on these kind of pilgrimages and studying them. So I see no connection between what the scholars write and what is on the ground, and that basic bhakti bhav is missing. Till you have that bhakti bhav, you can't absorb what is there on the ground. So very quickly, tell us, if I, as a lay person and non-Maharashtrian, want to go on one of these Warkari pilgrimages, is there any website or any contact where I can contact and register myself or take help from?
Yeah. So primarily, as I said, Dindis are the core groups. You will have to find, or you can ask me. I can give you lots of numbers.
Is there
Yeah.
a common website for these?
No. So unfortunately, Dindis, very few Dindis have a website.
Or these temples have a website where you
Yes,
can
temples
contact?
do have. So there is a routine, or the schedule of Vari is out at least 4 months in advance. What we do not find very easily is the resource persons of Dindis. For that, you need to have somebody who participates regularly in this dindi. So, fine. But some dindis are becoming very modern. They have their websites, and if you Google them, you will find them. But again, for that, you need to know the name of the dindi,
Right.
or at least people who are leading that dindi. But the schedule is very much out there. So, Jnaneshwar Sansthan Committee, Jnaneshwar Maharaj Mandir Sansthan Committee, similarly to Karam Maharaj Mandir Sansthan Committee, they come out, even Pandharpur Temple Committee, they come out with the schedule of the Vari much in advance. So that is no secret. But for logistical purposes, if you are joining a Vari for a day, it's very easy. You can start walking with the procession anywhere and stop walking anywhere and go back to your vehicle wherever it is parked. So
Is there any specific sector or section that you recommend?
yeah, so if you want to get a true experience of Vari, I would say, and if you are joining, say, for example, Jnaneshwar Maharaj Palki procession, I would say join after Jejuri,
Okay.
because till then it moves from the city areas like Saswad or Pune.
Mm-hmm.
The hang of it starts only after Jejuri. So Jejuri, Lonand, Valle, these
Okay.
are the places which will give you a better idea. And another very important part, just see where when ringan is happening, because
Ah.
every party will have ringan. And as I said, Vari is also known as Anand Sohla, so
Mm.
it's a blissful festivity. So
Mm.
that bliss, Warkaris play and dance and sing, and there is no iota of worry or depression. Or so, if you really are into lot of routine and you really need a good break, just go and watch Ringat. Even if you don't participate in it,
Mm.
just go and watch, and then you would get ecstasy. You would feel that bliss that the Warkaris have on the path of Vari.
Great. Anything else that you think we should know or people who are planning to go should know about
So on an
Vari?
average, we walk about 15 to 20 kilometers per day. It may be lesser or more depending on the distance of that day. You need to have ability to adjust with other people,
Mm.
because Vari is primarily a community pilgrimage. It's
Right.
not many other pilgrimages like where you are walking all by yourself.
Right. Right.
That is not the idea of Vari, and it is a community pilgrimage. It's called Samuha Vari. You walk
Mm.
in dindis, you walk with, and why it is needed. It's
Mm.
not just for the logistical purposes. Of
Mhm.
course, many workers would tell you you need to be in dindi so that you don't even realize how much distance you have walked and you don't get
Right.
tired very easily. Because walking 20 kilometers otherwise can be very tiring.
Right.
But when you are walking with people, singing and dancing, playing abhangs and singing abhangs, it doesn't feel much. That's one. But secondly, and which is more spiritual kind of a reason, you get satsang. So walking with santas in the form of padukas, the luminaries in the tradition, and it sets a path for you. It is
Right.
also a mirror for you on your spiritual journey. Am I doing right thing on my spiritual path? What shall I be doing? Am I getting too agitated because I did not get food at a particular point in time, or I expected some other menu in the food for lunch and I did not get that. I had to adjust to I had to get up at 3:30 a.m. when Dindi Pramukh promised that we can sleep up until 4 a.m. So I got half an hour less sleep. So all these things, and so that's also a mirror wherein you can cross check what's happening to your own spiritual journey. And then there are live examples out there how people who are really on who have really advanced on this path, how they respond, how they react, what do they say, how do they say it. So I think apart from the study itself, the social dimensions, the cultural, the political, the economic, what I'm also interested in as an individual who really has faith in all this is, where am I? Where am I standing? Is it bringing in
Absolutely.
any positive change in my mind and the way I'm coming across to people?
Absolutely. As we always say, the pilgrimage is as much a journey inside as it is outside.
Absolutely.
So that and I think Vari pilgrimage is one of the most beautiful living examples, and also a pilgrimage that anybody can participate in if they want to, so they can experience it firsthand. And I hope to do that sometime someday. So thank you
You're
so
most
much,
welcome.
Varada. I will anyway ping you the day I decide to go. So
Sure.
thank you so much. I look forward to reading your book, and we'll put the links of your book on the podcast. And thank you so much. And as they say, Vitthal Vitthal.
Yes. Ram Krishna Hari.
Rama
Would
Krishna
be
Hari.
Thank you for joining us on Detours. You can also join us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Our handle is IndiTales, IndiTales. See you soon.